The cabin lights were dimmed, casting a soft glow over the polished leather seats of the first-class section. The hum of the engines blended with the low murmur of quiet conversations as passengers settled in. Marcus Ellison sat upright in his seat, hands folded calmly in his lap, eyes focused on the safety card he didn't really need to read. His tailored charcoal suit fit him perfectly, and his presence carried a quiet authority that didn't demand attention but naturally commanded it. Across the aisle, a flight attendant paused, her gaze lingering on him longer than necessary. Her name badge read Claire. She adjusted her posture, tightened her jaw, and walked toward him with brisk steps that carried impatience rather than professionalism. "Sir," she said sharply, stopping beside his seat, "you need to move." Marcus looked up, surprised but composed. "Is there a problem?" he asked evenly. "You're in the wrong section," Claire replied, her tone clipped. "This is first class." Marcus calmly lifted his boarding pass from the armrest. "I believe this seat is mine." She didn't even glance at it. "I don't have time for this. Your seat is in economy. You need to move now." A few nearby passengers glanced up, curiosity flickering across their faces. Marcus felt the familiar sensation of being judged before being heard, but he kept his voice steady. "Ma'am, I boarded with the first-class group, and this is the seat assigned to me." Claire crossed her arms. "Do you know how many people try this every flight?" she said loudly. "You can't just sit wherever you want." The word "you" landed heavier than it should have. Marcus inhaled slowly. "I'm not trying anything. I paid for this seat." She leaned closer, lowering her voice but sharpening it. "Look, I don't care who you think you are. I need you to get up before I call security." That got the attention of the cabin. Conversations stopped. A man across the aisle raised his eyebrows. A woman a few rows back pulled out her phone discreetly. Marcus stood slowly, not in submission, but to meet her eye level. "I would appreciate it if you checked your manifest before escalating this." Claire scoffed. "Oh, so now you're telling me how to do my job?" Before Marcus could respond, another attendant approached, drawn by the tension. "What's going on?" he asked. "He's refusing to move," Claire said quickly. "Says he belongs in first class." The second attendant glanced at Marcus, then at the seat number. "Let me check the system," he said cautiously. "There's nothing to check," Claire snapped. "I already know." That was when she crossed a line. As Marcus remained standing, Claire reached out, grabbing his forearm sharply and pulling. "Sir, sit down or get off this plane." The cabin froze. Marcus stiffened, shock flashing across his face before being replaced by something colder, controlled, focused. "Do not touch me," he said quietly. Her grip tightened for a moment before she released him, suddenly aware of the silence around them. Every eye in first class was on her now. "Captain needs to hear about this," she muttered, turning away. Marcus sat back down slowly. His heart was pounding, not from fear, but from the weight of restraint. He reached into his jacket and removed his phone. Several passengers exchanged looks. A man leaned toward his wife and whispered, "This is about to get ugly." Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He simply made a call. "Yes," he said calmly when the line connected. "This is Marcus. I'm on flight 417. There's been an incident." A pause. "Yes," he continued. "I'll explain when you get here." Claire returned moments later, with the purser and two uniformed airline managers. Her confidence returned as backup arrived. "This is the passenger," she said, pointing. He caused a disturbance. The purser addressed Marcus stiffly. "Sir, we're being told you're in the wrong seat." Marcus handed over his boarding pass without a word. The purser scanned it. His expression shifted almost imperceptibly. He scanned it again. Then he looked at Marcus, really looked at him. "Seat, Oh," the purser said quietly. Claire frowned. That can't be right. One of the managers checked the tablet, his face drained of color. The silence grew heavy. "Is there a problem?" Marcus asked calmly. The manager swallowed. "Mr. Ellison, could we speak privately?" Claire's eyes widened. "Wait, what?" Marcus stood again, straightening his jacket. "There's no need for privacy," he said. "I believe everyone here should hear this." The manager nodded stiffly. "Mr. Ellison is, the majority shareholder of this airline." Gasps rippled through the cabin. Claire's mouth fell open. "The owner," someone whispered. Marcus met Claire's gaze steadily. I don't usually introduce myself this way, he said. Because it shouldn't matter. Her face turned pale. I didn't know. No, Marcus replied. You didn't bother to know. The captain emerged from the cockpit moments later, alerted by the commotion. The situation was explained quickly, painfully. Marcus spoke evenly. I was grabbed, I was threatened, and I was humiliated in front of a cabin full of passengers. The captain nodded gravely. That will be addressed immediately. Security was called. Boarding was halted. The aircraft door remained open. Claire stood frozen as reality sank in. I want this flight delayed, Marcus said calmly. Not cancelled. Delayed. Until every passenger understands why this matters. The managers nodded. As passengers deplaned temporarily, whispers followed Marcus, not of judgment now, but respect. One woman paused beside him. Thank you, she said softly. For what? Marcus asked. For not letting this slide. Hours later, after reports were taken and policies reviewed, Marcus finally sat alone in the empty cabin. The power he held had never felt heavier. This wasn't about ownership, it was about dignity, and this time, the system had been forced to look at itself. The delay stretched on, long enough for frustration to turn into reflection. Passengers sat in the terminal again, some annoyed, others quietly processing what they had witnessed. Marcus remained near the gates, speaking calmly with corporate representatives who had arrived in person. He answered their questions carefully, not embellishing, not softening. Facts were enough. He described the moment her hand grabbed his arm, the way authority had been assumed, the way his explanation had been dismissed before it was heard. Claire was escorted away from the gate, her shoulders slumped, her earlier confidence completely gone. She avoided eye contact with everyone, especially Marcus. For the first time, she looked small, not because she lacked power, but because she had misused it. The other attendants stood silently, realizing that this was no longer just an internal issue. It was a lesson unfolding in real time. After nearly 2 hours, passengers were invited back onto the aircraft. The mood was different now. Conversations were subdued. People looked at Marcus with a mix of curiosity and admiration. Some nodded respectfully as they passed him. Others whispered apologies, as if they had personally done something wrong by staying silent earlier. Marcus returned to seat 1A, placing his briefcase beside him. He stared out the window as the sun dipped lower, painting the tarmac in warm orange light. He thought about how easily the situation could have ended the moment Claire first spoke to him. If she had simply checked the manifest, if she had listened, if she had treated him like any other paying passenger. Instead, it had escalated into something that would follow her career forever. He apologized for the delay and acknowledged that an internal matter had been mishandled. He emphasized that every passenger deserved respect, regardless of appearance, status, or seat number. It wasn't a speech written by public relations. It was a man choosing his words carefully because he knew they mattered. As the plane finally taxied, Marcus closed his eyes briefly. Relief washed over him, but so did exhaustion. Standing up for yourself was never as simple as people imagined. It required energy, patience, and the willingness to be misunderstood. He wondered how many times he had chosen silence in the past to avoid scenes like this. Today, silence had not felt like an option. Midway through the flight, the purser approached Marcus quietly. "Sir," he said, voice low, "on behalf of the crew, I want to apologize." Marcus nodded. "I appreciate that." The purser hesitated. "May I ask why you didn't say who you were sooner?" Marcus considered the question. "Because if respect only comes after a title is revealed," he replied, "then it was never really respect." The purser absorbed that, nodded again, and walked away without another word. When the plane landed, Marcus was among the last to disembark. He didn't rush. He allowed the moment to settle, to conclude properly. As he stepped into the terminal, his phone buzzed again, this time with a message from the board. An emergency meeting had been scheduled. Policies would change. Training would be mandatory. Accountability would be enforced. Marcus knew better than to assume promises guaranteed outcomes. Still, this was a start. As he walked toward baggage claim, a young black boy tugged at his mother's sleeve and whispered something. She smiled and nodded toward Marcus. The boy looked up at him with wide eyes, a spark of recognition flickering across his face. Marcus smiled back, just briefly, but the moment stayed with him. Later that night, alone in his hotel room, Marcus loosened his tie and sat by the window overlooking the city. The lights below pulsed with life, indifferent to individual struggles. He reflected on leadership, not as ownership, but as responsibility. He had inherited shares, yes, but authority was something he earned every day through choices. He drafted a personal note to the airline staff, not as an executive directive, but as a reminder. He wrote about curiosity over assumption, humility over ego, listening before reacting. He didn't mention Claire by name. This wasn't about one person. It was about a culture that allowed her behavior to feel justified in the moment. In the weeks that followed, the incident became a case study inside the company. Not because the owner had been involved, but because the response had revealed cracks in the system. Some employees resisted the changes, others welcomed them. Marcus stayed involved, attending sessions quietly, listening more than he spoke. He understood something clearly now. Power did not protect you from being disrespected. It only gave you the option to respond when it happened. Most people never got that option. On his next flight, months later, Marcus boarded anonymously again. Different crew, different plane. The attendant smiled warmly and welcomed him without hesitation. No assumptions, no suspicion, just professionalism. Marcus took his seat and smiled to himself. This time, nothing happened. And that, he realized, was the real victory.